Hello and welcome to Grips Poker Training. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Evan. I will be your instructor as per usual. And today we're going to look at the different player types that exist in the poker spectrum. This is from my experience playing No Limit Hold'em, the main player types that you will run into. And I'm also going to help you characterize yourself as a poker player and get a better idea of where you fit into the poker spectrum and what strengths and weaknesses you probably possess, and therefore you can figure out which areas you want to work on and how best to approach going about that. So let's go ahead and get started. Looking at what kind of poker player you might be. The first type of poker player is known as a nit, which is a super tight player. These guys play very few hands, but not out of fear. It's just that they prefer to stick to the spots that they know are going to be most profitable and maybe avoid the ones that are going to be a little bit difficult, require a lot of thought and brain power and whatnot. Next, there is the tag, which is an acronym for tight aggressive. The aggressive means that they prefer to bet and raise rather than check and call. The alternative to that would be passive, which you will see on the bottom side of this black line here. Third is a loose aggressive. Once again, another acronym. The difference between the tight aggressives and the loose aggressives is that the loose aggressives enjoy playing more hands than the tags do and get themselves into more spots. Now, these three player types that are above the black line are the players that you will generally expect to be winning in the games. They have a solid strategy that involves a lot of strong plays and avoiding trouble spots. But as you should know, there aren't only winning poker players in the world of poker. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as a professional poker player. So let's look at the three that come below the black line who are not as fundamentally sound per se as the nits, tags, and lags. So the first one we have is a weak tight, which is similar to a nit in that they play very few hands, but these guys do it more so out of fear. They play very cautiously, very passively. They'll let you control the action, and they'll probably fold more hands than they should. That could be good. They're very easy to bluff, and they don't get enough value on their hands when they make a strong hand because, well, they're afraid that you might have the nuts in almost every spot. So that's the first, I don't want to say bad, but less strong player type that you'll encounter at the poker tables. The next is a fish, which is a nickname for a loose passive player. These players play way too many hands. You know, any two suited is enough for them to get involved. They might play any ace, play any broadways from any position. No real regard for hand selection. And then on top of that, they'll play very passively after the flop. Once again, they will let you control the action. They never really bluff, and they'll just call a bet if they have a pair and always try to see another card, hoping to get lucky and make, you know, a two pair, three of a kind that might not even be good if they hit it. So that's going to be one of the most lucrative spots you're going to run into at the table is if you have a really loose fish in your game, you should be able to get a steady earn out of them. And next we have the donkey, also known as the maniac, also known as the agtard, and the list goes on for names for these guys. But the general characteristic is that they are very loose and they are recklessly aggressive. So unlike the regular loose aggressive who has, you know, a lot of game and a lot of gears and knows how to put the pedal to the metal, but also knows when to ease off, the donkeys, they don't care. If the action goes to them, they're going to bet, and they're going to bet big almost every time. Now, this strategy works some of the time, especially in, you know, early stages of tournaments where players are playing very passive and scared and weak. This is a great style for building up a stack. The problem is when the loose, recklessly aggressive player finally gets caught, he's probably going to be getting caught for all his chips, and he's going to be in a pretty hopeless spot with not a big chance of getting out of the hand alive, per se. So there are some good elements to this strategy. The problem is not knowing when to slow down and knowing when to adjust to the image that you've created if you're a donkey. So you want to be player type 1, 2, or 3, and you want to be on the lookout for player types 4, 5, and 6, and try to get in pots that they're playing because they're going to be the easiest players to win money off of. So let's look a little bit more at the nits, who play safe and therefore are rarely sorry. The characteristics, personality traits that would see someone develop into being a nit at the poker tables involve, first off, being conservative by nature. You know, you prefer to play it safe rather than sorry. You know, you'd probably take the long route home if you know it's the safe route rather than going through that dark alleyway. It's like to know what's going on and take the safe route because it's hard to get into trouble and it's hard to get hurt doing that. Building on that, they are risk averse by nature. They are not drawn towards gambling. They aren't drawn towards the action part of the game. They're in the game to make money and they want to do it as steadily as possible. Nits are also focused on maximizing their value away from the table, meaning these people will spend a lot of time educating themselves, studying material, reading books, going over their hands. And likewise, they'll also probably be the type of person who spends a lot of time on their own personal care, you know, fitness, health, image, all the normal things that go into being a great human being. The nits tend to be pretty focused on this stuff because they want to do everything the right way and they want to get the maximum out of everything they can. Likewise, well, I've heard the term life nit before. I've been called that quite a few times. Nits aren't the biggest spenders. They aren't the biggest ballers in the club. They aren't the guys who go for the $500 dinners on the regular. That doesn't mean they don't have fun. It just means, you know, they're smart with their money because they'd rather have it last. Nits also prefer to avoid tough decisions, which goes with the fact that if you are a nit, you're probably going to be playing very few hands and keeping your decisions relatively straightforward. More often than not, you're going to have the best hand, and if you don't have the best hand, you're probably going to be folding most of the time. It's a really easy way to play poker, and it allows you to put in a lot of volume because you don't have to use all your brain power focusing on the tough decisions, so you can kind of autopilot and play more tables because all your decisions are so easy and straightforward. Nits would rather make a tight fold than a big call. This is probably a little bit out of fear, but also the thing about being a nit is generally when you're a nit, you're pretty set in your ways and you have strong beliefs that what you're doing is going to be the right thing. And therefore, when you make these tight folds, it's because you're pretty confident that you're making the fold because it's the right move. And then, you know, it's easy to tell yourself that the guy had what you thought he had that would have you beat. And then it goes really well for peace of mind and avoiding tilt. So even though sometimes those tight folds will be incorrect, over the long run of their career and of your game, it's definitely not a bad thing. Nits also like to put in big volume because it allows them to capitalize on, you know, rakeback, loyalty programs, and getting all the perks that come from being an online poker player. Likewise, in live casinos, there's still a lot of extra value to be had, and by being a nit and keeping your decisions simple and straightforward and keeping your swing small, it's easy to put in those hours to get that maximum value from the house. So let's look at what's good about being a nit, because so far they may not sound like the most fun player type, but I can tell you they're definitely the calmest and overall might have the best happiness out of the player types because they don't deal with the big swings that other players experience. And that is point number one, is that you will experience less variance than your counterparts if you are a nit. You can play more tables since you face so few tough decisions, which I discussed on the previous slide. And, you know, for people who like to do 12, 16, 20, 24 tables, generally the people who are coming from a gaming background, this style is going to suit you very well, at least while you're first learning the game, because it allows you to get so much value from the promotions, and it enables you to build your bankroll very quickly and very steadily. Nits often get more action than they should from the regulars because the regulars don't want to believe that someone could play as tight as a nit does. They don't want to believe that you have it every single time you make a big bet, and eventually they'll just try to call you out on it and generally be wrong. Likewise, you'll get a lot more action pre-flop than you should in terms of getting called all in by less than stellar holdings. That means you can get it in for stacks as an 80% favorite pretty frequently without having to build up a big image, which is a very big perk of being a nit. Now, obviously, with the strengths come some weaknesses, so let's take a look at what those might be when dealing with nits. First is, well, they're easy to bluff because when you need a really strong hand to continue on to the next street, and it's very difficult to make a strong hand and hold them, means it's easy for you to get blown off your hand. Now, until your opponents start doing this on the regular, it's not going to be an issue. It's only when someone has developed a counter strategy to your tight nature that you're going to have to switch it up to avoid getting exploited. The next weakness is that of the player types, nits are most likely to be break-even or slightly winning players. They're not going to be your Tom Dwan or Phil Ivey types or Gus Hansons who really build up the bankroll really fast and experience huge peaks and valleys in their careers. But with the help of value back, rake back, loyalty programs, and all the other promotions that come with online poker, even being break even at the tables means you'll still be making good money from everything else. And if you're a slight winner, that's just some icing on the cake. For what it's worth, one of the biggest winners in the history of online poker, Phil Galfond, is a self-proclaimed nit. So if he's doing it and it's working for him, can't be all bad. Lastly, nits sometimes pass up on profitable opportunities out of fear. This involves, maybe a pre-flop spot where you could make a call and see a flop to win a huge pot in like a re-raised pot or something. But due to the fact that you don't want to play a big pot without really knowing where you're at, nits will often pass up on these spots and miss chances to win big pots, but it also means they don't experience a lot of variance pre-flop, so not the end of the world either. All right, now on to the tight aggressives, who are fundamentally sound and strong. Characteristics of a tight aggressive are generally going to be a strong academic background and work ethic. It's because this tight aggressive strategy was the one made most popular by the 2+2 forums and the other training sites. So everyone who is working really hard on their game learned how to play tight aggressive because when online poker first became big, tight aggressive was the best way to make money. Now the landscape has changed and there's a place for all styles out there. But the hard workers learn how to be tight aggressive, and given that that's what the majority of the information available teaches, if you're a hard worker, you're probably going to learn how to be a tight aggressive poker player. Tags are risk indifferent. That means, they're not extremely against gambling, but they aren't at the same time extremely in love with gambling. They're just trying to do the right thing every time, and they kind of just remove the gambling element from the game, which is a good way to go about things. As I was just saying, tags are focused on doing the right move every time. Now, this means sometimes following a pretty strict regimen robotic style of play. But if it's a winning style, again, it's a good thing to do. With tags, the why is more important than the how. These types of people, and therefore these types of players, like to understand why they are doing what they are doing, and understanding, why is this move better than another move? Why should I be doing this? They don't just want to see, okay, these are the moves that you can use, put them in play and you'll make money. They really want to understand what's going on. And this ties in with a strong academic background, that it's more so about the knowledge and the understanding than just the mechanics and the actions. Going on that, they're always looking to minimize mistakes, and you guys should know by now that if you are minimizing mistakes, you are at the same time increasing your earn. And what I most like about the tags is that they're not in a rush to move up the ladder. They aren't trying to get from 5 cent, 10 cent to 25.50 no limit overnight. They understand that the poker grind, the professional poker experience, is a slow and steady process where if you put in your hard work and you pay your dues, it will pay off and you can work your way up to the higher limits. If you try to rush up there, you may have some good runs, but you're not going to be mentally and emotionally prepared for what there is to come at the higher stakes. And therefore, being a realist and being willing to take your time moving up is an extremely great quality to have, not just in poker, but in life. So, what's good about being a tag? First is that they give away very little money. Um, and it's funny, you would think that I would have put this for the nits because they play so tight, but the tags understand that they have to defend their blinds and that sometimes they have to defend their position when they have the button. And in this sense, in all situations, they are minimizing how much money they give away rather than just the hands that they don't play. Tags also tend to make the highest value plays based on expected value, which is kind of the way you keep score in poker. To determine whether a play is a good play or not is based on whether or not it shows a positive or negative expectation. Tags are also very good at never missing a value bet. They are capable of value betting thin, which means, betting a hand on the river that could be good or could be the second best hand, but against the opponent's entire possibilities of holdings, you're ahead of more hands than you are behind, and therefore you can make what is called a thin value bet. Nits will generally check at most of these opportunities, whereas tags are always looking for that spot to squeeze out some thin value and maximize their earning potential on each hand. Looking at the weaknesses, tags, as I was saying earlier, they learn how to play and why they play the way that they play, but they generally just stick with the fundamentals and the strategies that they've learned from the material, and therefore aren't really willing to experiment with a lot of different things. A tag would generally like to see someone demonstrate how to do something and why it is effective, and then try it rather than trying to figure it out for themselves. So this holds them back a little bit in their development as a player. Tags also don't bluff enough because they are very focused on maximizing value and sometimes don't look at the fact that you can get really good odds on your bluff and don't have to be successful 100% of the time every time you make a bluff. Finally, just kind of putting the two together, by playing robotically and failing to make adjustments, Although your style is very difficult to exploit, it is easy to read, and therefore an observant, competent opponent will eventually figure out the strategies you're using and therefore the best exploits to use against them. All right, on to the legs, for who more cards means more fun. And I bet that's a lot of you guys out there, because for anyone who's drawn to poker for the excitement, it's more fun to see more cards, play more hands, all that good stuff. So the characteristics, personality-wise, of loose aggressives are generally that they are A-type human beings. You know, you're talking quarterback of the football team, leading goal scorer on the hockey team, or a striker on a football team, the funny guy, the center of attention, the A-type human beings. Um, I know that at some point in your life, no matter who you are, you have experienced the presence of an A-type human being, and believe me, they stand out. Lags also, like I was saying, love to gamble, and therefore they are drawn to the action. They are risk inclined. They want to get involved in pots and gamble as much as possible. Likewise, they enjoy putting their opponents to tough decisions, which goes with the whole being risk inclined thing. Not just taking chances on playing hands and seeing if they can get lucky, they're also taking chances that they can make you fold in a lot of different spots. Lags are really good at applying pressure to their opponents because they're willing to take these chances that sometimes don't work out. They're always looking for another reason to see another card, any reason to see another card. Backdoor draw, I'm in. Gut shot, I'm in. If I can make two pair or trips and stack this guy, well, then I want to see another card. Lags are also good at using bluff raises to get two free cards for the price of one. That's a concept that we will examine in a later lesson, though. I've pretty much said it over the past 4 points, but if they can find any reason that a play is good, even if there are 19 reasons why a play is bad, people who play lag will generally just focus on that one reason that it's good and make a play rather than thinking about the reasons that a play might not be good. So sometimes this leads to some reckless play, but it definitely is exciting and gets the heart pounding. Lags also are focused on being the best player ever, which goes with being an A-type human being and is definitely a good quality to have because it's that drive that helps someone really make it to the top. If you aren't thinking about being the best and wanting to be the best and doing everything you can to be the best 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, well, odds are you're never going to be the best. And if you're not satisfied unless you're the best, then you are going to work your ass off and at least see some really good results along the way, even if you don't make it to the top of the mountain. So that's probably my favorite quality of the lags. And I give them a lot of credit for going for it. And the guys that you see who have really done huge things in poker, most of them are loose aggressives. Strengths and weaknesses for the gamblers. Lags are difficult to put on a hand because they play such a wide range of hands and they play a lot of different hands the same way, which makes it very difficult to read them. Lags also force their opponents into a lot of wrong decisions due to the fact that they are so hard to read and it's tough to know what's going on with them. Combined with the fact that they're also putting constant pressure on their opponents, lags are most able of the player types to get their opponents on tilt, which means getting their opponents to make mistakes. One of the most frustrating things in poker is having a loose aggressive player on your left, 3-betting you every hand, raising your flop bets every time, never folding to your bets, and putting you to the test. And a lot of times, that's going to lead to you cracking and making the wrong play against them. On the good side, when variance is in your favor, and you're playing a lot of hands and lots of big pots, you're going to experience huge upswings. but I'm sure you can guess what one of the weaknesses is going to be, because when you run bad, those upswings are flip-flopped into downswings, and they are also quite large. But the first one is that lags, since they're trying to be all creative and trying to be the best, sometimes they experience what we call FPS, which is fancy play syndrome. And they do things kind of just for the sake of doing them, to try to be cool or do something awesome or try to do an epic bluff or an epic call so that they can send their friends the hand history. And sometimes they just miss an obvious, simple, straightforward decision, which would get the job done. They also sometimes assume that a lot of their opponents think and play the same way they do, so that sees them make a lot of major mistakes against nits and tags if they aren't making those adjustments. Lags, being A-type human beings, are also very emotional and are the most likely players to tilt. And, well, tilt combined with playing a lot of hands, playing a lot of big pots, you can guess what the end result of that is. So if you are a lag, please practice good bankroll management, because if you're tilting lag, it's really easy to bust your bankroll, and that's the last thing I want to see anybody doing out there on the felt. And there it is, summed up in the last point. Lags will experience big downswings when running bad, and they are the most likely player types to go broke. Now you can get back in the game, you can reload. If you've really proven yourself on the felts like Isildur did, it's not that hard to find a backer to stake you. But those are the exceptions rather than the rule, and it's better to take care of yourself rather than trying to have someone bail you out when things go sour down the road. So that sums up the 6 player types, and I'll give you guys a minute to take a guess at which one is the best to be. The first hint is that it is not one of the players on the bottom half of the introductory slide. Okay. So hopefully you guys have come to your guess, and now I will throw out the answer. Hope it's not disappointing, but the answer is, of course, none of the above. The best player type to be is a chameleon. You want to have some elements of each player type in your game. And that's what the announcers on the World Poker Tour, and I think Norman Chad on the World Series does it too, refers to as changing gears, the ability to change gears. So that means when you're playing on a very weak table, you want to let your inner lag out and really kind of try to take control, run everyone over, and be the table captain. Now sometimes, though, there will be a couple of guys already doing that, and the best play is to kind of just bide your time, pick your spots to try to pick them off. And there are also some games where the game just plays so loose and so absurd that the only real strategy to take is to be a nit and wait for good hands, because you're almost guaranteed to get paid when everyone's playing so crazy and giving so much action. So yeah, whatever personality type you are is going to determine what your natural fit is, and is going to determine what your general style is. And they're all good. Being a nit, being a tag, being a lag, all 3 styles will make you money as long as you're doing your homework and being the best nit, tag, or lag you can be. But to really break through to the next level and to be competitive in the tough games, which won't be for a while, a year or 2, maybe 3 years into your poker career, you'll really hit this point where you have to understand all the styles, understand how to counter all the styles, and then know when it's right to change gears so that you can be playing the optimal style all the time. This has been Gripsed. No, this has been Evan for Grips.com. getting used to the new sign-off, guys, so bear with me. I really hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please leave me your comments and your feedback. I hope that this video helps you find your style and maybe find yourself a little bit more, so you'll be more confident and prepared to do battle on the felt. One more time, this has been Evan for Grips.com. Now it's your turn. Go out there and get stacking.